now return to the Transformers.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, for part 2 of my video review for Transformers Universe 2.0 Perceptor. Perceptor's body, Rovy, his robot mode is, in my opinion, it works. It's not too detailed, but it's like not too overly detailed, but at the same time it's not too under detailed. It's like the perfect mix. It's just perfect. And essentially for robot mode, I love it. It's a perfect mode. Now for articulation wise, Perceptor is probably a big surprise for me. You see, for articulation, not only does his arm rotates 160 degrees. That's not very good articulation, is it? His arm rotates 360 degrees and has a nice ratchet to it. His arm can bend forward and back 90 degrees each way. Now, just a note, when you're pushing your arm up to the microscope here, it's probably going to cut out. Lift up the arms here. His thighs, he can rotate at the hips. His thigh can go completely out 90 degrees and can bend back 90 degrees. So, and just keep moving. So, but I did promise this, and I may or may not have alluded to it in my Soundwave video. Perceptor kick. Ah! Yes, that was for you. That was for you, Time Lord. I'm sorry if I copied you, but I just had to do it because I was reviewing Perceptor. So, articulation-wise, Perceptor is top-notch. Absolutely top-notch. I could not ask for anything more. So, for articulation, I'm giving Perceptor a 23 out of 25. It's the perfect melting pot for all the figures of the 80s. I mean, you got to admit, if your figure can do the splits in the 1980s, that's saying something. Gimmick-wise, Perceptor does have a few gimmicks that are really awesome. He's got his microscope mode, and I apologize if I'm running through this quick. He's got his microscope mode, which also has a focus mode on the tip here, like on the end here. He's got his tank mode, which does count. He's also got other than that, he doesn't really have much else going for him. I mean, he's got his blaster, which just tabs into his arm or into his hand. And he's got this. Now, this is a missile launcher for Perceptor. Looks pretty neat, you know. Looks nice, colorful. Nice reissue of the one for Perceptor. Holds it in his hand. Okay, let's just insert this missile and not drop it on the floor. Let's insert this missile and we'll just see how things and we'll just go and fire it. Huh. Okay, I'm sure it was just probably a little fluke. The hell? Haha! See, I told you it was. I told you. Yes, as you can tell, this missile launcher does not hold the missiles. Now, here's the missile. So, right away, it's a bit small. Now, here's my finger just as a comparison. That's pretty damn small. Like, not as small as Ironhide's missiles, mind you, so that's at least got it going for it. But it's pretty thin and small and would probably get... Actually... I'm losing missiles left, right, and center. Right, here is just a Warhammer 40K missile. Now compare it to the missile that I have here, and it's about the same size and thickness, so that says something right there. So his missile launcher doesn't hold the missile, and you can't fire the missile launcher. It's essentially, if you want to, it could be a gun, like just another blaster, but otherwise there's no point in having a missile launcher you can't fire. So gimmick-wise, I'm giving Perceptor a 23 out of 25 for gimmick, because although this thing is extremely horrible for any set, even if it was a reissue, I still think Perceptor does have a lot going for him. So, he deserves an average, just a tiny bit above average score. Now, on to Fun Factor. Now, for Fun Factor, I'm going to score Perceptor at about a 21 out of 25. Now, my reasoning for this is pretty simple. You see, Perceptor in himself is a $50 figure. Now, I'm sure that some parents wouldn't care about spending $50 on their kid, but just think about this for a second. You're a kid nowadays, and you want a figure. Now, I'll give you a good example, because I have. Well, I'll just use Mr. Hound here. So, okay, let's say you had a choice between these two figures as a kid. Now, if Hound here costs about $14 for a deluxe class, Perceptor here is just a tiny bit bigger, but is a $50 figure. Who do you think your parents would usually pick? If it was my parents, they'd pick the cheap one, because obviously $14 is a lot less than $50. That being said, now that in itself should say something. I'm not going to spend $50 on a figure that's about the same as it was in the 1980s. I mean, I can constitute paying $50 for, and I'm speaking as a parent here, not as a collector. But if I had to, I could constitute, if I had to pay like $50 for a leader class figure, then that's different because it's a huge figure. And I love how I was like huge, like for example, like Leader Bulkhead there. I'm not sure if you can see him, but Leader Bulkhead's got voice gimmicks and massive articulation, and is worth $50. Perceptor, not so much. I hate to sound like I'm contradicting myself with like, oh, Perceptor is awesome, Perceptor is great. Not worth $50, folks. The second thing is Perceptor has a few parts on him that could break off easy in the hands of a kid. Firstly, the door. This thing's held on by about two plastic pegs that help it flip, as is the little tray, as is the little, if you can see that, this little piece down here. So if you hit it hard enough, and I don't want to, with my diorama, if you hit it hard enough, it will break off. There is no denying it. That there is absolutely no question. Also, the microscope. Now, I'll show you how easy it is to take the microscope off. It didn't even take me like a second, and the microscope's already off. If you pulled on this thing hard enough, these little pieces would break. I'm surprised I haven't broken it because it's already starting to bend for me. That's because I had to take it off to tighten it back on. It still wouldn't work. So, that in itself is another thing. Finally, the missile launcher. I wouldn't consider this fun if you just stuck it in and that's what happened. I don't consider G1 figures when they can't fire the missile, I don't consider non-working spring-launching missiles as missile launchers as fun. But again, that's me. And finally, these things could be very dangerous for kids. So that's just a minor note. So that's why I score him at 21, because just this figure is more for collectors. It's a reissue of a commemorative reissue. So unless you really want to spoil your kids, don't buy them. Don't buy Perceptor unless you really think either A, they will like it, or B, you know they'll be careful with it. So in total, I'm going to give G1 Perceptor an 88.5 out of 100 as a total score. He's a nice figure, a few knocks for gimmick, and a few knocks for fun factor. But in other words, I still think that he's worth every penny that I spent for him. And even though I said I don't constitute spending $50 for a figure like this, I never owned Perceptor, and I wanted to have that opportunity. So I feel it was a worthy investment. And I feel that if you want a Perceptor, then this is your chance. But you better hurry, because last time I checked at Toys R Us was a week after I bought him, and they were all gone. Also, the Insecticons are part of this reissue series as well, so if you like them, by all means, go out and purchase them. So, Finally, I think I may have gotten this working, but this is Malwave with G1 Perceptor signing off. See ya, folks.